Hello, this is Granny Opterix leaning over her 15-year-old Mac PowerBook, and I want to talk to you about the law. Again, in respect of the way the media are treating Boris Johnson and the way people are starting to talk about the destruction of statues. It's all part of the same thing. Now, the media, the British media, has obviously taken its cue from the American media, who decided to destroy Donald Trump and succeeded. To a certain extent. They are now finding out the consequences of their actions, but they're not going to start admitting that, are they? And the British media are thinking, oh, look, the American media brought down Trump, so why don't we bring down Johnson? Why are they talking like this? I don't know, because Johnson is the best we've got. He's not marvellous, but he's better than the Labour Party was, isn't he? And he's certainly better than most of the people by whom he's surrounded. Not because they're all incompetent, but because Johnson has a certain je ne sais quoi. Let's put it that way. And Johnson is unfortunately the victim of something else, because the media are riding a wave as well. And the wave is that when you get a leader who has brought people through a particularly difficult time, then as soon as people can see the light at the end of the tunnel, they ditch the leader. This happened to Winston Churchill. He took Britain through the Second World War. And then, as soon as the war was over, they voted him out of office. It seems to be human nature. Now I come to think of it, there's this, go back to the Bible. Moses brought the children of Israel through the desert, didn't he? And then as soon as they got near the promised land, that was the end of it. It's supposed to have been God who ditched him, but I think it was probably the people as well. They just got fed up of him. Now, Stephen Barrett wrote this article in The Spectator, and he's a barrister, so he knows whereof he speaks. But anyone with any sense can see the argument he's making. He just comes up with the fine points of the law. The consequences are something else, and that's something we should all be able to see. Was the law broken? Well, it says here, no, the Downing Street party probably didn't break the law. Was the law broken at the Downing Street Christmas party last year? A video has now been leaked showing a Number 10 advisor joking about the festivities. Yet this incident, which is currently dominating the news, almost certainly did not break the law, which is why the story is so perplexing. This is the 8th of December, so they're talking about a Downing Street Christmas party. Recently there's been another one about a meeting in the Downing Street garden. And there are photographs of that. Now the thing about that is they were meeting in the garden and they had bottles of wine in front of them. And so people are saying they were having a party. Well, apparently they brought their own bottles, which meant that they weren't passing things between them, and they were out in a garden, which means that they weren't, that they were in the open air. So again, this is almost, it looks like they were being careful. There is no law that says that you can't have a glass of wine. In fact, most people spent most of their COVID lockdowns with glasses of wine, didn't they? Mr. Barrett says that this is a very perplexing story, this Christmas story, and no doubt he'd say that about the other story as well, the recent one. But it's not perplexing. It's this thing about ditching leaders or feeling that you want to get rid of a leader once you're out in the clear. During the course of the pandemic, the COVID laws have changed regularly. So he's talking about this Christmas party again, so we'll have to stick to that for the time being. Yet one thing has stayed largely consistent. The rules have always treated people and places differently. Despite what some might claim, there's nothing sinister in this, and it's for this reason that the cheese and wine gathering, which the PM has said did not take place, probably isn't a matter for the police, because even if it did, it wasn't against the law. The starting point is in the COVID rules should be Section 73 of the Public Health Control of Disease Act 1984. You see, in 1984, the governments were discussing the problems of a possible epidemic. They were thinking ahead and wondering what they were going to do. And they tried to put some sort of laws in place. Now, they were certainly not thinking of Zoom meetings, because that wasn't a thing in 1984. So you could say the government can use Zoom now instead of meeting. But I've been on quite a few Zoom meetings, and they are not the same as people being there. So even now, I think you can say that a personal meeting is better than a Zoom meeting in most cases. This part of the Act, the Control of Diseases Act, states that the COVID regulations at all times never applied to Crown land, which includes Number 10. This only changed if Number 10 made a written agreement, not to be bound by it, which of course it hasn't. Why would this be? The reason is simple. In the 1980s, lawmakers decided that it would be better to allow the government to function during any future national pandemic without having to worry about being caught up in quarantine regulations. And that's perfectly reasonable, isn't it? The thinking was that by making the government effectively exempt in law, the government could continue to function. In addition to the 1984 Act, there were also specific regulations that applied at the time of the alleged party. Hang on a minute. Sorry about that, the computer was moving. All right, we'll start again. The health protection coronavirus restrictions. According to these rules, gatherings were allowed in all public buildings or parts of them operated by a business, a charitable, benevolent or philanthropic institution or a public body. So you see, already those sort of meetings were allowable in law. There had to be a risk assessment, but a gathering was legal. So it seemed likely that whatever happened in Downing Street was legal. Of course, this won't placate Boris Johnson's critics, Mr. Barrett says, nor will it do much to dent the attacks on the PM. Yet, because the press are out to get him, or rather the Guardian, BBC press are out to get him, and they're out to get him simply because they're out to get him. There doesn't seem any the perplexing thing is the logical inconsistency of these people, because as you can see, they're not that bothered about the law when it applies to other people. The Colston thing, they were very silent about it, and there were many articles in The Guardian about why it was a good thing. But now that meant that there's a guy chipping away at the Gill statue in front of the BBC. Look, I don't like Karl Marx. I don't like what he did, I don't like what he thought, I don't like him as a person, and I'm not going to go and start chipping away at his statue in Highgate Cemetery. And there are, okay, let's go for the Greeks. Most of Greek men in classical Greece seemed to fiddle about with little boys, didn't they? Well, all those marvellous statues that we've still got from ancient Greece, are we worried about what the artists were like? Of course we weren't. They just tell us how the Greeks looked at their gods, how they depicted them. That's really important. Can you imagine what would have happened if the Greeks said, oh, well, we didn't like the artists, so, I mean, we've stopped fiddling with little boys now, so we're going to destroy all their statues. Gill was a bloody good artist. And this is the problem. We are not thinking of the law anymore. We're thinking of how we feel. And there is a point at which we have to control what we feel. And there are lots of things we want to do that the law says we can't for the good of society. And in our legal system, Barrett, people are innocent until proven guilty. People do not just say that crimes occurred and then demand that somebody proves that they're innocent. Criminal lawyers will call this the golden thread. It applies to people they don't like as much as those they do, and that's what we should think about. And that's what the organs like the BBC, they're not talking in those terms. They're not saying, look, we don't like who Gill was, we don't like who Colston was, but the law is the law. And Barrett continues, far worse than this is another greater wrong has occurred. The public have been mistakenly told that some people are above the law. I don't think it was mistaken. I think this is the BBC rabble-rousing because they can see an easy path set for them. They know that people are now things are loosening, that they're going to be turning on their leaders. And the BBC think, oh, well, we can lead that charge. It's not at all mistaken. It's a plan. No one is above the law, says Barrett. That is what the rule of law means. If public confidence in that is undermined, then that's a very serious issue. And then people need to stop playing politics with the law. And it's not people he's talking about. It's the media, especially, of course, the leftward media. And I don't know why they think it's a good idea to destroy the structure of our social system, but that's what they're trying to do. And that's what we must not let them do.
Why not treat yourself or a favoured relative or friend to these magnificent examples of merch? The mugs and t-shirts come in the Graniopteryx design or Granbo with a firearm or the more deadly knitting needles. Go to www.graniopteryx.com and whatever platform you're watching this on, please click like, subscribe and share.